This was an event where there are quite a few first responders here who were actually off duty who came to the concert. To understand what some of these people went through, listen to this one volley of shots.
Right in front of us, 20 people, all just peel over like dominoes. And so we went down with them.
The last image I remember is him laying on her body while I'm down on the ground. Bullets are, going overhead, and I'm sitting there thinking he's going to get shot.
Karen also helped a young woman who was grazed by one bullet. Another hit her cell phone. He and some others eventually used a piece of a fence as a stretcher to carry the woman to a waiting vehicle that took her to a hospital.
Paige Mellinson was at the concert with her mom and younger sister. She was shot in the elbow. Her mother was shot in the abdomen and was unable to move. Well, tonight, Paige Mellinson was able to thank the retired firefighter who stayed behind and saved her mother's life.
Well, Pat, that hero once worked at this fire station in Granada Hills. He retired just 3 years ago after 34 years on the job. Matthews, a retired LA City firefighter, immediately went into action to help the woman who had been shot in the chest.
I do the direct pressure, gunfire again. We bury our noses into the astroturf.
He knew the woman's 2 daughters and their 2 friends couldn't stay there.
You need to leave. Your mom will feel better if she knows you're safe. And they said, well, promise me you'll stay with my mom.
That's right. Paige's mother was shot in the chest and unable to run. And then comes a complete stranger who happened to be a retired firefighter.
She was facing the grass, and that's when I knew something was wrong.
And I just kept screaming at my mom to look at me and that it wasn't her time to go. And I remember how cold she felt.
He looked at my sister and I and said, if you need to go now, if you want to stay alive, you need to run. And we had to leave our mom laying there.
My mother is alive because of you.
But I promised your daughters I would be there with her.
Yes, you did. And you did, and you kept your promise. I knew you would, but oh.
I've never seen anything like this. I've witnessed death before, but I've never seen it on this magnitude.
Friend, wife, mother, Hannah Allers, seen in this photo smiling at the show, was near the stage and was killed.
She wanted to go up there, but she didn't want to get her feet trampled, so when the second round went off, Jason Aldean stopped suddenly, and we're still like, what's going on? And then that's when I look over and I see the lady a few feet away from us that was down on the ground, and she was deceased. I could tell right away. And that's when I knew it was a shooting going on, and I grabbed my wife and I said, get down. And this time it got crazy because I started hearing the whizzing of the bullets, and the bullets were hitting the asphalt around us, and you can hear it and see the asphalt popping up. At that point, all of us, me and the 2 gentlemen and the lady, we all got on top of this guy to help protect him. And that was the only one moment where I was kind of acceptant that I wasn't going to make it out of there. We said, you want to go back? And we said, yeah, let's go back. Let's do this.
We were kind of piled on top of each other, kind of like a mob. We were running for our life. And as we were running with our backs to the Mandalay Bay, we could hear the rapid fire of the rifle coming right by us.
Seconds later, one bullet grazed his back and another hit him in the back of the lower leg. In spite of the bullet lodged in his leg, the off-duty Torrance Assistant Fire Chief then grabbed 8 others and ran into the street. They piled into an Uber van that happened to be outside. In stable condition, Trescas volunteered to be treated at UCI Medical Center. He was just released. The bullet, he was told, will have to remain in his leg for life. He hopes every limp, every wince will remind him.
There's things that we think are important in this world. There's things that really don't mean a whole lot.
And it just, again, couldn't have think, excuse me, sorry about that. I could not have ever thought that it would have happened to me at all.
Well, you're trained as a firefighter, an EMT.
Well, as a professional firefighter with the Kern County Fire Department, it's part of our training to actually be a portion of that. We do have active shooter training within our professional department. And it's just more, we did hear the firecrackers, and it was kind of going to be more of a safety precaution for all of us. Heard the first set of firecrackers, and then after the first set, the second set started going off maybe 10-ish, 15 seconds later, and then she told me she was no longer able to breathe, and then instincts came in from there, and it seemed more like a trauma situation more than anything else, and it needed to be, I needed to protect her versus other things.
How is she doing now?
She's doing very well. As of yesterday, she had 4 of her chest tubes taken out after open heart surgery.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, can you walk us through what happened that night? I mean, you never think this is going to happen to you, and there you were, and your girlfriend gets hit.
I think it should be more of a gun awareness thing. If we had a little bit more people that were able to even defend themselves.
I mean, you're trained for things like this. You're a volunteer firefighter, as Dean said, an EMT.
The biggest thing that we've been asking people is to go ahead and check out her GoFundMe page. Please just go ahead and check out her GoFundMe page.
Kyle Darren grew up on Grosse Ile, but he's been living in Las Vegas for the past 2 years. And while he hasn't served as a firefighter and first responder for a few years now, that training never left him.
My first reaction, I just want to try to help people.
There were reports there were other shooters heading north to other hotels. So he went to be with his team at his hotel, where a few of the wounded had gathered for safety. They were all on lockdown.
There was wounded people everywhere, and people were just scattered in every direction, frantic, kind of in shock. I got out of the car, and I just picked the first 2 people that I saw walking towards me, or running away, and said, "Are you hurt?" They said, "Yeah, they're shot." So I said, "Come with me. I'm a first responder." Patched them up as best as I could real quick, and then loaded them into my car and took them to the hospital as fast as I could. They were hysterical. They were just, get us out of there. They weren't honestly saying much. They were just crying. A lot of mental and emotional trauma, as you can imagine. So we did our best to care for them.
5 years ago, Las Vegas started a special interagency training program between the police and fire departments so that they respond together and faster to incidents like mass shootings. That training likely saved lives and is now being used as a model in other cities.
I just felt like if I was going to get shot, I was going to get shot. There's nothing I can do about it. But what I know I can do is help a lot of people. I had taken my belt off, wrapped it around his leg, and made a quick tourniquet out of it, threw him on my back, and started running with him on my back towards the medical tent. I rode in with her to the hospital.
You stayed with her?
I did, yeah. I got home around 3:30, I'd say, in the morning, and changed my clothes. They were covered in other people's blood. She stood for the first time. It's a feeling, it's hard to describe. It's the same way as when your kids stand for the first time or take their first steps, But
The firefighter is one of the first responders being recognized as a hero from Sunday night. He was at the concert with his wife, but after telling her to run for her life, he stayed in the line of fire to save others.
I was really trying to reassure my wife right before I left that this is going to be over soon. There was a brief break in the gunfire, and that's when I told her, hey, just run that way to the Tropicana and don't stop. We're 2-3 steps away from their cover, and we had 3 shots ring out 5 feet in front of my feet.
What Travis didn't know is that his wife Haley couldn't get out either.
We all started praying, and saying the Lord's Prayer just over and over and over again.
Travis carried 2 victims on his back into the medical tent.
That's where I met a young girl who'd been shot in the back. She got shot in the lower back, really close to her spine. And she was worried and really panicked.
She knew she would see her 2- and 3-year-old again, heading to the hospital in the back of a truck with that young girl.
She stood up for the first time today, so that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, really special.
His training with the Clark County Fire Department was a big reason he was able to remain calm during the chaos.
The LA Fire Department tells us 2 of their firefighters were shot too. They are both expected to be okay.
I heard that Jason Aldean was singing when this started, that the fire was coming from, and it was chaos.
Yes, that is correct.
What was it like when this all happened? Where were you guys at? What'd you hear? What'd you see?
We were just on the rail enjoying the concert, and it sounded like fireworks. And then all of a sudden, everybody started scattering and gunfire, and people were running everywhere, and it was chaos. Complete chaos.
Where'd you guys go?
We got down along the rail and moved along the rail to the exit. And then we got back. I worked in the trauma tent for a little while. It was crazy. It was chaos.
We've been told a lot of people were shot or trampled, or there's a lot of injuries.
There were a lot of injuries. The rest of the information you should definitely get from the police.
What was the trauma tent like?
There was a lot of emergency medical personnel running around, walking around, treating everybody. There was a doctor and or nurse, and she took charge and triaged everybody. And then the ambulances started showing up and getting people out. It was run well. You know, those kinds of places sometimes aren't set up for that, so they did a good job with what they had to work with.
So it's been about an hour or so since this all happened. Where have you guys? You've been in the trauma tent the whole time? Have you been hiding out? What have you been doing?
He was in the trauma tent, and I was hanging out with a police officer in like a secure area.
Where are you guys from? You guys from here?
We're from St. Louis.
From St. Louis.
Just here on vacation?
Right.
Just for the concert.
Just came in for the concert.
Right.
I mean, surreal.
Absolutely.
Surreal. Absolutely. And just chaotic. Just completely chaotic.
Retired Orange County Fire Battalion Chief Don Forsyth says he heard every one of them. He was on top of a building in the middle of the concert venue, along with 200 other country western music fans, when the shooting started.
Well, you can imagine 22,000 people trying to get out of a very small area. And he knew that there were 4 entrances to get in, and that many of the people would be going that way, and that was the most dangerous.
We're a little unsure about whether to try and corral 200 people that are crawling around on the floor and send them down an exposed stairway. During the waves of shooting, every time there was a break, it would seem the break might last a minute and a half, 2 minutes, so we would hustle as many people down the stairway as we could. As soon as the shooting would start again, we'd tell everybody to get back down on your stomach, stay here till the next break in the waves, and eventually we got most everybody off the top deck and we went down with them. Everybody would start running one direction and he would shoot ahead of them, and the whole entire stampede would turn 90 degrees and go a different way. And then the very next wave, they would turn another 90 degrees and go a different way. This police lieutenant and I started trying to figure out how to get people out the chain link fence. We found an area where there had been a rolling gate that was chained closed. We were able to force it and bend the pipes enough so that people could squeeze through the gate enough. And we were pushing and shoving and literally pulling people through the tight squeeze. We then went, so we were hustling anybody we could gather up, telling them, come this way, we know how to get to a building. And we hustled several hundred people into the back employee entrance of the Tropicana Hotel.
We all hit the ground, and there was a lady in front of me who was laying on her back, and I told her to roll over on her stomach, and she wasn't moving, so me and the gentleman next to her rolled her over, and she had suffered a gunshot wound. That's when the gunshots got louder, closer. You could hear the bullets going through the air. And when they stopped, we ran. And then they started again, and you could hear them, and we ducked, and we climbed underneath something, and when they stopped, we got up and we ran again.
We heard a couple of pops that were super isolated and sounded like firecrackers, and we found out later over the police scanner and from some firefighters that we were working with later on in the night that there were some firecrackers that started it all, that led to just rounds being unloaded on the crowd nonstop, popping, and bullets just whizzing past people. So everybody, once the continuous round started, everybody dropped to the ground and tried to take cover as fast as they could in between shots being fired and moving towards the exits as fast as possible.
So I'm in the military, kind of used to those kind of rounds going off and the sound. Once we figured it out, it's called I'm up, you see me down. I mean, I'm an Army firefighter, so I don't go out, I don't go shoot rifles. I'm qualified and all that, but knowing the sound, being around it, training, you got instincts. I'm also a firefighter.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.